Guys, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Once again, today we've got Claude Treverson from Business Doctors. He's a business consultant. Claude, thank you very much for joining us again today on our second recording.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me. Thank you to JJT yourself for inviting me. Wherever we can help customers, it's always great to be able to do that.
Great stuff. So guys, remember you're on the JJT YouTube channel, and a big welcome to our viewers again. Please make sure this is an educational channel, so please feel free to subscribe, like our videos, go and watch all our other educational videos we have available. So Claude, let's jump right into it. So the last time we spoke about the sales pipeline and the sales funnel, the pipeline and the funnel, how to work it, how to build something that you can use. And we said to our viewers the previous time that they can contact you if they need any help. So once again, viewers, you'll see the links to Claude and how to get in contact with him down below. Claude, so as we've spoken about that, as we've spoken about the sales funnel and the pipeline and how to identify it, there's a lot more to it, right?
100%. There's definitely a lot more.
And why we say that is we all want to work with people we know, like, and trust, okay? And one of those, we need to identify those people. And from what we've discussed previously and now we got to the subject with which we've discussed, is how to identify your ideal client.
So yeah, it's very important to understand your ideal client, okay, what it means. So your ideal client you should see as those people who want to partner with you and want to work hand in hand with you so that both your and their business thrives. You don't want to work with those business or those customers who just throw obstacles in your way and everything is like pulling hen's teeth. So you really want to be on the side of the spectrum where you are seeing them as partners and willing partners, as opposed to people that see you as a grudge purchase, and that's where you want to be.
Okay. So why is it so important then to have that ideal client? And you've mentioned one or two things now. But why else is it so important to have that ideal client?
So we first got to look at the definition. So if I can bet you right now that if I went and asked each one of your employees to define the ideal client, how many employees do you have?
So we've got about 20 employees.
I'll get 20 different answers. Okay, simply because in people's minds, we all think we kind of have an idea what an ideal client is. But once again, we get to the old story of what's not measured can't be managed. So we've got to be able to measure it, and it makes it a lot easier that everybody in your company now understands, okay, exactly what an ideal client is, okay, and it's based on criteria that we define as a company and saying this is the kind of customer we're looking for. Okay.
So, but also in that method, and you're saying 20 employees will have, or 20 people will have 20 different answers, because each of us see it differently and we're willing to work with a different kind of person than the other. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah. But still, your opinion and your tolerance of what's right, what's trustworthy, what's a good client, is different to somebody else's. So your ideal client is not necessarily ideal for the business. Here we've got to talk not about individuals, but we're going to talk about the business. Okay. So JJT must be able to define to everybody within there is this is the kind of client JJT is looking for, as opposed to what Gerard is looking for, what somebody else is looking for, Jacques is looking for, because then you're going to be working with such a diversity of clients that maybe if you're dealing with a Jacques client, you're not going to like certain aspects. So it's got to be in the interest of your company.
Okay. And then how do we actually then identify and let's call it build a methodology around the ideal client?
So first of all, we've got to look at within your company, you've got to understand who you're dealing with. Are you a business to business kind of company, or you're B2C, okay, which is business to client?
Yeah.
In your case, you're both.
Yeah.
And the criteria of a business to client, that client is different to a business to business. That business has different criteria, different aspects you look at. All right. So, for example, if you're dealing with business to client, you start looking at demographics, their age, their earning brackets. You start looking at where they live, etc. Things like that. What their interests are. That is typically because you're dealing with an individual. Right? But if you're dealing with a company, those things are not important. Then you start looking at their ability to pay. What are their payment terms? Are they compliant in terms of things like Kings and the King 5 and legislation and things like that. So that is different criteria. So you've got to first of all within your company understand who is your client from internally.
Okay.
Then secondly, now we look externally, all right? And externally, we've got to decide what is the different criteria that's important. And for me, there's 3 areas that are important. Number 1, what is not negotiable from your perspective. So there might be certain things like you might say, I don't want to deal with certain state-owned entities because they are notoriously late payers, for example. And you might say, so state-owned entities is a non-negotiable. So that means, that's just an example. So you've got to have criteria that says absolutely not negotiable. The second one is what defines whether that client is ideal or not. So you'll define the criteria. You'll say, what point do they have to have that defines them as a good client? So you'll have a tier 1 to tier 4, or A, B, C, or D client. Your A client's ideal, so you might say 85 score, 85 to 100 is your ideal. Your second tier, which is still a company you want to do business with, but you know.
So one of the aspects could always be like, let's say you provide plants to the farming industry, as an example.
Yes.
But that can also then be diluted into you want to focus on game farming or produce farming, and those can be also aspects within your criteria.
So what you could do is you can say, I'm going to look at the ideal clients for game farming, and my ideal client for produce, like vegetables or anything like that. That's a different set of criteria. So I can have 2 things, 2 separate checks that, or you might say in the farming, I might look at the guys who actually provide the equipment. Right. Their criteria is different to the farmer themselves. So you're going to have 2 separate checks, if you want to call it, one for that industry and another one for another industry. And you might say, well, I'm going to look further down the chain, the fast-moving consumer goods, which is then the next step. It's a whole different set of criteria. But within that, we're always going to have the not negotiables. We're going to have the desirables, which is your giving your client a rating, and then we have the nice to haves, which are the things that are not going to determine yes or no whether you're going to do business with them. But if it's a client that you're doing on an individual valuation, they're on the fence, maybe the nice to have will swing the balance. Okay.
But then that also feeds back into your pipeline and into your sales funnel, because now you have to go and do some research about certain clients, about you need to know your industry and you need to know your kind of clients. You need to get names together to know exactly how their setup is, so that you can determine your non-negotiables. Am I right in saying that?
So you're going to have to do work. So typically it rolls back to already when I'm looking for the client, I know the criteria I'm looking for. Okay, and what you do is, instead of saying maybe not, is once you set the criteria, then for each of those criteria, you're just going to say, do they comply? Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Very simple, very accurate, okay? And everybody in the company uses the tool, right? Yeah. It's no different for you. I mean, if they're using it, they're just going to go, do they comply? Yes or no? There's no in between.
Okay.
Which gives you the rating you're looking for, and then anybody in the company will know whether they're good or not. Okay.
And that you're talking about the tool. That tool can be, once again, something like an Excel spreadsheet with your non-negotiables, your criteria you've discussed within, call it the business, the company. Even if you're a one-man band, you still need to know exactly what kind of client you're looking for. So as you add people to that business of yours, you can then change criteria as well. It's not necessarily set in stone.
No. So, as things change, as legislation change, then things that might have been acceptable become non-negotiable. So it's going to evolve depending on the environment. And of course, as a one-man band or a one-woman band or whatever you want to call yourself, it's important that you apply it consistently the same all the time. So if I'm in a good mood, I'm going to say, Christian's business, they're okay.
Yeah.
But if I'm not in a good mood, I'm saying no ways. Okay. No ways. So you understand? Okay. Or my last interaction with that person.
Yeah. So it also takes out some of the emotional.
You have to take the emotions
out of it. Okay. Right. And let's say we've now identified the ideal client and it's worked into our pipeline, and what is the expected impact of having that ideal client?
So the impact is, if you think about the time you spend on trying to acquire clients, okay, and you might go visit 10 clients and only one, or 10 potential clients, we spoke about prospects, and only one becomes a client.
Yes.
And then that client is not necessarily the ideal client. You've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into acquiring that client. So right up front, if I'm saying this is the group of companies I'm looking for, I'm focusing on that already, which means I cut down my prospecting time, and then I cut down afterwards having to deal with issues that come up because already I've vetted that client up front.
Okay.
So and the impact is I'm doing business with a client who, as I said to you in the beginning, is a willing partner.
Okay.
So if you just put costs into that, the time, the effort, all right. So what the impact is, you reduce costs, you get better customers, which ultimately is going to also drive, because of those costs, because of the way you deal with them, because of their willingness to work with you, is you drive up your profit margins.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, all right, that's what it's about, is getting those guys that you are working well with, and they drive up your profit margin, and because you providing the service they want and they see you as a partner, is the impact is also on their profit margins, because you understand each other.
I mean, you understand each other, the whole thing moves smoother, the process, things get done faster. And what I'm also thinking about now is that, and help me in my way of thinking, is that because you've got this ideal client identified, and let's say you've got 2 of them already, and you only focus on those kind of clients, now all of a sudden, instead of, let's say, closing 1 in 10, you might be able to close 3 in 10, or 4 in 10 maybe,
or 1 in 4, or
1 in 4, whatever the case may be.
Because you're approaching already the kind of client that is already predisposed to working with someone like you, who's looking for that. And at the end of the day, it's also good for morale, because when your people are working and dealing with a client, they're not hitting stone walls, they're not frustrated, it's running, as you said, smoothly. So it also changes the whole mood within the organization. I'm working with people that I want to work with. Okay. And then they become those partners, as opposed to just the client-supplier relationship.
Lord, it's so interesting to talk about these kind of things, because it also puts me in a situation where it's valid things that you bring up, and it's things that someone sometimes overlooks as an important part of your business and your business growth as well. So, yes, Claude, thank you very much. It's once again, what an informative video we had today. Claude, thank you very much for spending the time with me today. Guys, as I said previously, please go and subscribe to the channel. We've still got some more to come up, and the next video we launch with Claude, we'll have another discussion about the next part. Claude, thank you very much once again. Guys, please like, subscribe, and keep on watching the JJT YouTube channel. I'm Gerard Jacques, sitting with Claude Treverson from Business Doctors, and please look at his details down below. Get in contact with him if you need some help with these kind of items. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerard, and thank you to the listeners for all the viewers for subscribing.
100%.